Mr. Shubha Vilas is a distinguished motivational speaker of international repute and a best-selling author. The focus of his work is the application of scriptural wisdom to day-to-day life and addressing the needs of corporates and the youth through thought-provoking seminars. He has delivered more than 5,000 talks, inspiring more than 5 lakh people across 20 countries in last 10 years. He is also a visiting faculty at several premier business management schools in India, including IIM and Narsi Monji Institute of Management Studies. We are honored and we are excited to hear Mr. Shubha Vilas. We have got really great response from a lot of young people across the country that they are very excited to hear sir on this particular topic. And we again thank you, sir, for joining us today and accepting our invitation on behalf of Campus Law Center and Ethicraft. We welcome you, sir. I yield the floor to you.
Thank you very much, Kajal ji, for introducing me. I would like to thank Seema ma'am for making sure that I'm here. So she has been very, very kind, and it's a great honor to be on this platform talking about law and spirituality. I have always been asked a question that, in my career, while after my engineering, I finished engineering in electronics and telecommunication. And then post that, I did law. And I was specializing in patent law, intellectual property law. Right? I was working for a couple of years in an international law firm. And then I joined a monastery, started staying in a temple. So people always ask me that, what did you do with your law degree and what did you do with your engineering degree, And today I'm feeling very happy to announce that, to give a talk on law and spirituality, that's like the highlight of using both the perspective of law and the spiritual understanding I have. And hopefully, with this conference and with what I'm going to speak in the next half an hour, I will really be able to do justice to the topic, and I'll be able to help you all see the alignment, and I will help you all see how deeply spirituality can influence the understanding of law and our practice of law. I'll begin with a very interesting concept. For all those of y'all who are, law students, law professionals, and anyone interested in understanding law, there is a very beautiful understanding that Sanskrit gives us. There are two words in Sanskrit that are very interesting, very similar, with just one small difference. There is Shastra, and then there is Shastra. Shastra means weapons, and Shastra means scriptures. Very small difference between the two, but there is a big difference in when they are used. Usually, people are given laws. Like, for example, many of our scriptures across the world are law books. Technically, if you see, the Bhagavad Gita, it gives so many laws. The Mahabharata, the Ramayana, even the Bible and the Quran, there is so many laws that are being given to us to help us be good human beings first. Because spirituality, without being a human being, it doesn't make any sense at all. First, you need to get to the human platform. That's why Shastra is always taught, supposed to be taught at least. There are some people who don't understand Shastra. And they are the ones who are to be helped by using Shastra. Shastra means punishment. Shastra means weapons, right? So if you don't understand it, then you need to be told the same thing in a different way. Like, there are 4 types or 4 levels of intelligence. First class intelligence is you hear something and you understand it immediately. Like, for example, you hear smoking is injurious to health. You hear it once, that's all. You don't smoke. Second class intelligence is you hear it, but don't understand it. But when you observe somebody suffering, then you understand, Cigarette smoking is injurious to health, you hear, but you don't understand. But when you see someone suffering with lung cancer and all that, then you understand immediately. That is second class intelligence. Third class intelligence is you hear, you don't understand. You see someone suffering, you still don't understand. You think it will not happen to me. And then when it happens to you, then you understand, oh, no, no, cigarette smoking is bad. The fourth class intelligence is you hear, you don't understand. You see someone else suffering, you don't understand. You yourself suffer, you still don't understand. Next time you think I'll smoke electronic cigarette, That's what most society is ending up into. So when you have a society that is filled up with a lot of fourth class intelligence, when I'm saying fourth class intelligence I'm not talking about educational degrees. Education and intelligence are two different things. They have no connection with each other. Somebody might be highly educated, but still maybe fourth class intelligence. Somebody may be no education at all, but still maybe may have first class intelligence. So when Shastra doesn't work, when you especially have the fourth class intelligence, that's when Shastra comes in. Punishment, which helps one rectify and repent. And that's what the purpose of punishment is. That's what the purpose of justice system is, to help people, if they make a mistake, rectify and repent. The Constitution of India, interestingly, if you actually look at the book in which the original Constitution of India is written down, all the corners of the book, there are paintings from Ramayana and Mahabharata. And it's very interesting that there are paintings from Ramayana and Mahabharata because these books, these scriptures give us a lot of the framework of what good law is, what good law practices, and the understanding of justice. The Mahabharata talks about four very important things: dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Now, these are not just principles that are to be just spoken like that, but they are to be lived by. Artha, when it is in connection with dharma, dharma means principles. Artha means wealth. So when money is in touch with dharma, when you earn money, keeping principles in mind, then that money is used in the right way. Kama, or kama means desire, and moksha means liberation. When kama is used for pursuit of liberation, that means all your desires are for liberation. Now, what is the meaning of liberation? Liberation is not just the spiritual liberation of going back to the spiritual. That's not the only liberation. It's liberation from fear. When you sleep at night, how do you sleep? Do you sleep well, or do you need sleeping pills? Or all night long you're not getting sleep because of so many anxieties, so many pressures, so many stresses, and because of many times not doing the right things. The Mahabharata says there are many reasons why you don't get sleep at night. And one of the reasons is when you have taken somebody else's property, you won't get sleep at night. That means when you have stolen from someone else, you don't get sleep at night. Anxiety leads to sleeplessness. And anxiety is a result many times of not exactly taking the right decisions in life, which leads to fear, which leads to a lot of anxiety because we don't know what is going to happen. So liberation is liberation from many types of fears that may accrue in our hearts due to wrongdoings. So when wealth is in touch with dharma, that wealth is utilized nicely. And when karma is in touch with moksha, the desires are for the right things. But you know what the problem in this world is? The problem in this world is that people are not interested in dharma and people are not interested in moksha. They're interested in artha and kama. When artha and kama are together, it's a disaster. When wealth and desire is together, it's a disaster. Because the only desire you have is for money. And the only reason you use money is for increasing your desires or satisfying your desires. That is a deadly combination. The most amount of crime, the most amount of wrongdoings in this world are because of artha and kama being together all the time in people's lives. Ideally, artha should be in touch with dharma and kama should be in touch with moksha. That leads to a healthy society. Spirituality simply helps us reach there. Mahabharata teaches us about four very important principles of life. In fact, all the stories of Mahabharata, everything, the whole Mahabharata itself teaches us four important principles. I'm not talking about dharma, artha, kama, moksha now. I'm going deeper. I'm going to something else which we may not have thought of much. What are the four things that Mahabharata teaches us? First, it teaches us excellence in skills. Second, it teaches us about being loyal to adopted values. Third, it talks about internal character. And fourth, it talks about purpose. Now, the first thing, which is excellence in skills, it is very easy to see. It is very easy to experience and it's very easy to judge. One can easily judge a difference between a good speaker and an average speaker, a good tabla player and an average tabla player. So if there is comparison between two peoples and it is purely based on skills, especially if you have two people who have equal skills, it will be a very close call to decide. But otherwise, it's not a rocket science. You can easily make out who has great skills and who doesn't have great skills. The Mahabharata goes to the second point. So the Mahabharata only doesn't talk about externals or skill. A lot of times today, people are judged purely based on their externals. You have great skills. That means you're great. You're a great person. No, that's not how you conclude if a person is great or not. You go deeper. The second thing the Mahabharata teaches us about being loyal to adopted values. What is the meaning of being loyal to adopted values? Let me talk about this. This is very easy to perceive. Like, say, for example, maintaining a dress code, reaching on time, not breaking line, following the traffic signals, even when the policeman is not there. These are all aspects of one's behavior that cannot be ignored. And when you look at such behavior in people, very impressive because it's visible. So skills and being loyal to adopted values, it's very visible. You can make out easily. The third thing, which is very tricky, is internal character. Internal character essentially means what a person is inside. It is not easy to gauge the internal character of a person in a small interaction. You can judge the behavior of a person or the adopted values of a person in a small interaction. You can judge the skills of a person in a small interaction, probably. But to judge the internal character of a person with one interaction, very difficult. So, internal character can be observed or perceived by deeper observations. Like if a person is deeply honest, if a person is sensitive to other people's needs, if a person is humble to the core. So the effect of character is experienced by society at large. You can't see it in one interaction, but when you observe a person's life, when you observe a person's contribution, you can actually perceive internal character. But the fourth thing the Mahabharata teaches you is purpose. That means this is the most difficult to ascertain. What is the purpose for which you have skills, for which you use your skills? What is the purpose for which you use your adopted values or behavior? What is the purpose of a certain character that you have, the internal character you have? When you understand the purpose of a person, that's when you get the complete picture. Somebody may be very skilled, but use the skill for the wrong purpose. Somebody may have very good behavior, but after having great behavior, he uses that great behavior to manipulate people and get things done. A person may be, having externally seeming good character in terms of the way he takes care of people, being sensitive and all that, But you can be very charitable. You can be very sensitive. You can be very caring, even humble, but for a wrong purpose. And therefore, understanding motive is very important to be able to give justice. I'm going to tell you all a very interesting story from the Mahabharata that will help you understand what I'm talking about in a much more powerful and yet in a very interesting way. In the Mahabharata, we find at one point during the war of Mahabharata, Yudhishthir is injured very badly by Karna. And Yudhishthir is like all over hurt and very, more than hurt, he's quite shocked because of the way Karna treated him. And he was very angry, very upset. And he was hoping that Arjun takes revenge on his behalf. So somehow the chariot driver of Yudhishthira takes him back to the camp, and Yudhishthira is like recovering there from his wounds. And then Arjun runs in to see if his brother is fine. As soon as Arjun runs in, Yudhishthira becomes, he asks him the question. He asks him, did you kill Karna? Arjun says, no, I came to find out if you're all right. And immediately, Yudhishthir began to blast Arjun. He says, "You're a useless person. I should not have had faith in you. I should have probably had faith in other people. I should have had faith in Nakul Sahadev probably. Blasted him like anything. Why? Because Yudhishthir made an assumption that Arjun will do it, and he didn't do it, and he was hurt because his expectation was not met. And then when Yudhishthir blasted Arjun, one of the things he said is, I suggest that you throw your Gandiva bow into the fire. It's a useless piece of stick. Yudhishthir says like this, and Arjun gets wild. Arjun is so angry, he runs to his brother, and he's almost on the verge of killing his own brother. So Krishna stops him and he asks him, "Come on, what are you doing?" Arjun says, "I taken a vow that anybody who tells me to throw my Gandiva, I'll kill that person." Krishna says, "I'll give you a better idea instead of killing Yudhishthir." He says, according to the scriptures, if a younger person insults an older person, it is as good as killing him. So he tells Arjun, "Why don't you just insult Yudhishthir?" And Arjun starts a series of insults. He says, "All our problems in life is because of you," he tells Yudhishthir. He said, "If you are not attached to gambling, we would have been so happy in life." And Arjun blasts Yudhishthir like anything. And after blasting him, Arjun takes out a knife and he's going to cut his own head. And Krishna asks him, "Now what happened?" Arjun says, after insulting my elder brother like this, how can I live? I'm feeling so bad for what I did. Krishna said, "Don't worry. I'll give you a simple solution to that also." He said, if you want to commit suicide, if you want to kill yourself, there is a very interesting recommendation that the scriptures give. How to kill yourself. He says, Krishna says, self-praise is as good as suicide. He tells Arjun, praise yourself. Today, all Instagram, Facebook accounts are suicidal attempts, in a sense. Everybody is praising themselves only. So then Arjun starts praising himself like anything. He said, "I'm a Gandiva Dhari. I've defeated Indra. I've defeated Shiva." Goes on and on. Finally, Yudhishthir and Arjun, both of them thank Krishna for helping them resolve their conflict. And then Krishna tells them two amazing stories. And this is what my explanation of what justice is, understanding motive is. Krishna tells Arjun and Yudhishthir, you can't look at a person's behavior and understand why he's behaving in such a way. He says, when you look at a person's behavior, sometimes we assume something and then we look at the person's behavior and then we make our own conclusions. Krishna says, unless you understand a person's motive, you cannot make conclusions, because sometimes acting rightly is actually wrong and sometimes acting wrongly is actually right. And Krishna gives two stories. He tells the first story of a hunter who killed an animal that was blind. And in those days, in the hunting profession, killing a blind animal is considered very sinful. So the hunter was crying and he was really repenting. I made a big sin. So the sages in the forest tell the hunter, no, you've not done anything wrong. Why? Because this animal, it's actually not an animal. It's a Rakshasa who has disguised himself as an animal. So killing a demon is not wrong. So the sages help him understand that his apparent wrong action is actually right. And then Krishna tells the second story of a sage named Kaushik. He was once sitting and meditating outside his ashram, and a man came running, panting, and he was really scared. 4 dacoits were chasing him, and they were about to kill him. And somehow he escaped and came here. He went and hid inside the ashram of the sage. After some time, the dacoits came, and they asked the sage, have you seen a man here? Now, Kaushik, he had taken a lifelong vow of never speaking lies. So now he was confused. Should I tell a lie and save this man's life? Or should I tell the truth and preserve my vow of always speaking the truth? Finally, he chose to tell the truth. He told them the man is hiding here. The dacoits went and killed this man. Krishna tells this story to Arjuna Yudhishthira and tells him, sometimes when apparently you're doing the right thing, you're actually doing the wrong thing. The sage is doing the right thing. You should not lie. That's the right thing. You should always speak the truth. Absolutely right thing. But look at the result. The result was a disaster. And therefore, understanding a person's motive is so very important. And that is what spirituality is about. Spirituality is not just a set, it not just tells you about laws, but it also tells you about why those laws are created. If you just follow a set of laws without understanding the motive behind why those laws are made, and if you look at the action of a person and don't understand the motive behind that action, you will not be able to understand the person at all. And therefore, when you go deepest to the level of purpose and motive, that's when you actually understand a person much more deeper. The Ramayana has one section that is one of the most brilliant sections of the Ramayana. In fact, I'm doing a PhD on understanding leadership and governance from the Ramayana. And while I was doing my research, I found some really amazing principles that Lord Ram talks to Bharat when they meet in Chitrakoot. I'm going to tell you all some very small principles that Ram speaks about how good decisions are made by leaders. So one of the things Ram says is he's asking Bharat a series of questions. He says, I hope no one who is upright is falsely accused of an offense and killed impatiently without a proper inquiry by those who know laws well. And then Ram says, I hope a thief who is caught red-handed is interrogated well and not wrongly released due to greed for money. And then Ram says, I hope your learned ministers objectively examine a case after studying the situation carefully when there is a contention between rich and poor people. And then Ram says something amazing. Look at this. He says the tears of those who are falsely accused destroy those who are indifferent to justice. That means when someone cries, especially when the person is wrongly accused, the tears of the person destroy the person who is actually indifferent to justice. A leader always finds himself in situations where he will need to mediate conflicts or deal with wrongdoings or handle accusations. Acting justly is so important for leaders. Injustice happens at so many levels. Ram speaks about 3 reasons why leaders make wrong decisions in such cases. Imagine if this is taught in in law books, how relevant it is. Ram speaks about 3 reasons why leaders make wrong decisions. First reason he says is impatience. Second reason he says is greed. And third reason he says is partiality. These are the 3 greatest enemies to good decision making when it comes to resolving conflicts and dealing with wrongdoing and handling accusations. Impatience stems from not spending enough time in understanding the situation. Every leader has to listen patiently without jumping to conclusions. Only when one has sufficiently heard patiently and sufficiently heard the problem, he can understand the problem. A leader has to ensure that he spends sufficient time listening to both sides of the story. Very often, a leader hears one side of the story and makes conclusions, and serious errors are made in decision making. The second, which is greed, the Ram speaks about. Bribing a leader to get out of serious allegations is not uncommon. So leaders can succumb to various kinds of bribes. And such leaders tend to leave the wrongdoer. And in the process, they do great injustice to the person who is affected. So when a leader does not have justice as his first priority, he ends up in making unethical decisions that tarnish the reputation of the legal system. People lose faith in the fairness of such organizations. And the result is demotivation, and the result is a decrease in the outputs. The third most common reason why leaders, why those who are justice um, upholders make wrong decisions is because of adherence to partiality. So when there is a contention between a person who is whom the leader favors and a person whom the leader hardly knows, the natural inclination of the leader is towards people that he knows closely. So this inclination damages the process of serving justice. Every leader should learn to remain detached while performing his role as a decision maker. Every individual has the right to experience fairness and a respectful treatment. When a leader favors another based on friendship, based on financial status, based on social status, based on gender bias, based on designation, or any other such criteria, the result and the decision that is made is detrimental. And therefore, Ram is warning Bharat that at any cost, if you make erroneous decisions in your life, he's saying the tears that come out from the eyes of the person who is unjustly punished or not offered the right justice, falsely accused, such a person, the tears of the person destroy the person who is making an unjust decision. Look at that, look at the weight of that, of the word. Decision making has to be performed with the utmost of precision and integrity. The price of a wrong decision is delivered in and is very high. The price is very high both to the organization as well as the person who is taking the decision, the reputation of the person and goodwill of the person. And therefore, when leaders are expected to make good decisions in life, the expectation is very high. The balance between understanding from a spiritual perspective and understanding from a legal perspective is actually very, very, interlinked. Its law originally began with the law of Manu. The Manu Samhita is a law book, but it is not a static law book. It's a dynamic law book that changes according to culture. And therefore, when you look at law, according to the present time, place, circumstance, the application of the law may change, but the principles never change. And therefore, spirituality helps us go to the deepest roots of what the principles are. And then the application may be varying. But if the principles are taken care of, then it is much easier to understand the application of those laws. And the laws can be, suitably molded to figure out, the right decision, the right, result. Unfortunately, most lawyers today, I'm sure it happens at all levels of the judicial process. Many people who enter the field of law, they enter simply because there's a lot of money in it. Greed and justice, they don't go good. They don't go together. The idea of justice has to be married to the idea of purpose, the idea of principles, and the idea of fairness. If the principle of justice is married to some other thing, which is, it creates a disaster. Therefore, I said dharma, which is good principles, and artha, when they're together, then greed doesn't arise. But when artha and kama are together, then greed arises, and there is a great disaster that is awaiting society. The judicial system today is crumbling under this weight, the weight of artha and kama being together. And the judicial system is crumbling under the weight of greed. And there is no end to this. And only when you understand these three principles that Ram speaks about, how important it is to be patient and listen to both sides, how important it is to control your desire for wealth, the idea of artha, acquiring too much, and doing anything for that. And the third idea of, uh, wanting to really be impartial rather than being partial to one side. So these three together makes a powerful difference. And that's what marries the world of law and the world of spirituality. Thank you very much. I'll stop here. And I'm very, very grateful and honored to be on this platform. And I'm very, very honored to be a part of this a very, very beautiful conference. Very important topic that really needs a lot of deliberation and discussion. Thank you very much.